on, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I think we'll make a start. Can I thank you all for coming along this evening? It's a pleasure once again to host the members of Hope for ME and Fibro NI, and especially to host this visit from Professor James Coyne. Did I pronounce that properly?
Perfectly.
Oh, thank you. A Professor of Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. You're all very welcome, and I'm sure that we'll all be very interested to hear what you have to say to us this evening. And welcome everyone. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of a number of MLAs. I see Danny Kennedy still here, Andy Allen, John McAllister. Did I see Claire Sutton somewhere too? Hi Claire. Rosie McCorley, sorry Rosie. Amongst others, and I know Ross Hussain and a lot of others were here earlier, and they'll be back later on this evening. I would like to make a few brief... Oh, sorry Alistair. He's okay. Very welcome. I would like to make a few brief comments to open the proceedings. It's very clear to me, both as a constituency-focused MLA and a member of the Health Committee, that fibromyalgia and ME are amongst our health services most under-recognised and under-supported illnesses. And folks, that certainly needs to change. I have been delighted to support Hope for ME and Fibro on many occasions, and have continually placed the issue on the agenda here at Stormont with successive health ministers. Indeed, the group held a very successful awareness drop-in event for MLAs here in this very room back in October, which I again was very privileged to host. Can I pay tribute to the important work which you all do to lobby the health service for additional support on this issue, even securing the support of the Patient Client Council. Together, we have also challenged the Lord Mayor of Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council. We never miss an opportunity, Joan, sure we don't? Never. to support us, to join us in supporting those often left to suffer in silence, and to join us in putting pressure on the Health Minister to deliver. And we're still waiting. Yes. Few of us don't know someone who struggles daily with fibromyalgia and ME. It's a silent, invisible illness, and sadly is far too under-recognised by our health service at all levels. However, in Hope for ME and Fibro, it has a strong voice, and I am glad to play my part in projecting this voice here within this building. I know too well how suffering from an illness like fibromyalgia and ME can severely impact on the lives of sufferers, as, like countless others, my sister Belinda, where is she in the room? Hi. Hiding at the back, who is with us this evening and helped organise this event, is living daily with this condition, and I'm very, very proud of how well she copes with it. As a member of the Health Committee and as my party's health spokesperson, you know my commitment to support this cause remains as firm as ever. I believe that one word sums up the fight for recognition and support, and that word is hope. Let us hope that the Health Minister and his officials take notice of the lobbying, the hard work and the promotion, and maybe even drop in tonight if we're very lucky, but also not forget those who don't have a voice and who often at home with their families to care for them suffer in silence. I very much look forward to hearing from Professor Coyne and what he has to say this evening. Again, can I thank you all for coming along to support the group and to stand with those who demand action. And I think now I'm about to hand over to Sally Burch. Thank you, Sally.
Hello, and thank you all very much for coming tonight. My name is Sally Burch, and I'm a trustee for Hope for ME and Fibro Northern Ireland. And I would just like to thank Joanne for hosting this event on our behalf. It's a very important event to all of us. I'll get this working now. Our speaker tonight is Professor Jim Coyne, and he's going to speak on the scandal of the 5 million UK PACE trial for ME and ask what can be done. You'll notice there I've put up a little notice about Twitter. The last event I was tweeting using this hashtag PACE-NI, and I know that there are a number of people, advocates and ME patients world over actually watching this hashtag at the moment. So if any of you feel like putting the odd tweet out, please do. It will be very much appreciated. The video recording of this event is being sponsored by the Irish ME Trust, so we'd like to also say thank you to them. So a little bit about our charity. First of all of our committee members are patients. We do a lot of work online, and in truth, we only met all together for the first time at the event on Sunday. We rely heavily on our healthy helpers, and there are a number of them in this room tonight. You all know who you are. Thank you very much. We could not operate without you. The group was set up by Joan McParland. She was bedbound for 7 years at one point, and during that time felt that as soon as she was well enough to get up on her feet, she would set up a support group to help other people. This isn't a wonderful photograph. This is her introducing Professor Coyne at Belfast Castle on Sunday. No, I don't mean of you, I mean of my photography. Joan's enthusiasm and commitment to the needs of patients is phenomenal. And as me coming into the committee later, she's a very hard act to follow, but we do seem to work okay as a team together. So moving on and telling you a little bit about what is ME. Myalgic encephalomyelitis, well, you can see why we shorten it to ME. It's recognised as a neurological disorder by the World Health Organization since 1969. Now that's a long time for illness to be recognised as a fairly disabling, debilitating illness, and yet there is still really very little progress on the biomedical research and on the treatment options for this illness. It's quite shocking, really. The main symptoms, I'm going to read this first bit out. Post-exertional amplification of all symptoms is the main symptom. What that really means is if you do anything that is an exertion, there is a payback that is like flu a couple of days later. And if you do that thing too often, the level at which it stimulates another payback gets lower and lower and lower. So this illness can be progressive, and that can be a little frightening. Let's look then at the different levels. At the very most mild level, they call it mild. That's a misnomer. A person with mild ME might be able to work at a sedentary job, but they will have given up everything else in their life in order to be able to achieve that. Working right through to the worst level, I've put that in red because it's a bit important, very severe. These people are completely bedbound, totally helpless, light and sound intolerant, and some of them are tube fed, needs hoists to be moved off their bed to do anything. Now, I'm sure some of you have had flu at some point in your life, and you know that the story about the £50 note? You know, if you look out the window and you see a £50 note on the grass out there, if you get up and go and get it, you don't have flu, okay? You're actually fine. Well, imagine passing that £50 note test, not just for a couple of days because you've got flu, but day after day, month after month, year after year. That is what very severe is like. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional because I know friends who I talk to online now who are in this category and have been for decades. This is a scary illness, and I would say it is a living death disease at this level. So, what are the treatments? Well, currently the NHS suggests graded exercise therapy and cognitive behaviour therapy. These are the only two recommended treatments that we have. Both therapies are based on the biopsychosocial premise that ME patients have false illness beliefs. In other words, what they're saying is, don't listen to your body when it tells you you're ill. You're not ill. If you just would exercise, increase it very gradually, a little bit more, you will get better. That's a lie. So, this brings me to the PACE trial, which cost $5 million to do. Basically, it has been used to promote these two therapies, graded exercise therapy, cognitive behaviour therapy, as treatments for ME. And as I said, patients don't agree that these work. these are not helpful to us. The ME Association has done a survey of patients, and actually if you've got information packs you should have a copy of the summary of that survey, and there should be a link there to get to the full document. But 74% of patients who have done graded exercise therapy report that it makes their symptoms worse. If you go into the main document and go to the very end of it, there are a huge number of anecdotal tales from patients who are describing how they did graded exercise therapy and ended up at a more severe level than previously. In fact, one I think talks about doing a bicycle cycle and then ending up basically bedbound for 4 or 5 years as a result. So the principle of medicine is do no harm. And suddenly we have this recommended therapy that is making patients worse. So back to the PACE trial. It has recently, well, actually from its inception, there has been a lot of complaints about how the PACE trial was actually carried out. Patients complained like mad, but more recently we have had other scientists coming in and pointing out the flaws with the trial. I'm just going to give you a very brief one. There is a lot of words written about this. There are also conflicts of interest. They altered the recovery criteria. So when the data started to come back in, they said, okay, if you're up here, you're recovered. The data started to come back in and, okay, if you're here, you're recovered. Now that's not science. You can't alter the outcomes that you're measuring after the data starts to come in. Some of the outcomes are subjective. In other words, just those surveys that you tick boxes. I'm a scientist. I was a biology lecturer before I became ill and lost my job to ME. Subjective outcomes are not a good measure. You want objective outcomes, numbers, step counts, those sort of things. There are also statistical problems, but that gets into a lot of maths, so I'll not go there. Okay, the final wee bit about the PACE trial is the authors are refusing to release the supporting data. They're making various different excuses. Now, Professor Coyne, I know, has asked for data from one of those trials, and he has been told that he is vexatious for asking for that data. They've lots of excuses, but the vexatious one, I think, people are finding amusing. So the guidelines for ME are not good. In fact, I would say they are inadequate. Professor Mark Baker, who is the director of NICE, his response was minuted in June 2014. He agreed that these guidelines were not good, that they were inadequate for the needs, and yet these guidelines remain on what is called the static list. That means they are not coming up for review anytime soon. The last time they were reviewed, I believe, was in 2007. So the Northern Ireland situation, there are an estimated 7,000 ME patients in Northern Ireland for whom there is no NHS specialist, consultant, physician, nobody that we can be sent to in Northern Ireland to help us with our disease, with our illness. Our GP survey, which we did a couple of years ago at a conference here, shows that many GPs are uncertain about diagnosis. They would prefer to be able to refer patients, both ME and Fibro actually, to a specialist who would actually make that diagnosis for them. But we don't have a consultant to whom those patients can be referred for the final ME diagnosis. In fact, in my own situation, I did not get a diagnosis from the NHS. I had to go privately to find out what was wrong with me. Training of new GPs, we've heard that actually ME is not specifically covered in the syllabus. So we are actively campaigning now for a dedicated consultant, physician-led clinic for ME that is based on sound biomedical principles. In summary, I'm finally going to stop. The PACE trial is unscientific. It shouldn't stand. Cognitive behaviour therapy and graded exercise therapy cause harm. The PACE trial is a roadblock really for us because it is what is providing the evidence that bolsters up these NICE guidelines. So this is the reason that it is so good to have Professor Coyne helping us actually remove the roadblock that is the PACE trial. The NICE guidelines need to be reviewed, and we need serious funding for real biomedical research into what this illness is. Thank you very much all for listening. And I will pass over to Jim Coyne. Can I take that down and put you on